Hey, Wargamers, welcome back to the channel, Death from Above Wargaming. I'm Aaron,
And I'm Kevin.
and we are back with a Hyperpulse uplink, another collaboration with Camo Specs Online. Guys, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Brushido here with us tonight, and he's going to show off some amazing artwork. And we have a very special surprise for you guys. I think you'll be excited to see it at the end. So we are going to dive into a little bit about Brushido himself. We're going to dive into some of his fantastic artwork. So guys, stick around. That's all coming right up. All right. So, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you carving out the time. I'm excited. I'm excited to show our viewers some of the amazing things that you've painted, and also to get to know a little bit about your BattleTech background.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's exciting. So,
Yeah, man. Well, Kevin and I just discovered we're both twin dads, so we have that in common.
yeah.
We're both BattleTech fans, so we have that in common too, which is extra exciting. So I want to start there. I want to start with your origin story. Tell
Okay.
us, how did you get into BattleTech? When did it happen?
So I got into BattleTech because of my dad. My dad got into battle droids when he was in the Navy, I think in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And then like he was a physician with the Navy, and so he was stationed over in Sasebo. And when he moved back, he opened up his own private practice in Richmond, Indiana. And I think I was 5 around the time, and I got to start rolling dice with him.
Nice.
We would play on like vinyl mats that you'd like draw terrain on, and
Yeah.
he'd have friends from like Ohio and stuff come out, and we'd play like it seemed like every week, probably not actually, but and then like he like let me start my own little merc unit, and I think I was 5 or 6 at the time, and it was a blast.
That is
And
awesome.
ever since, it's been kind of like this thing my dad and I share. Like we've just, I mean, I kind of branched out into other things, like primarily just because of miniature painting and stuff. But BattleTech is like my dad and I's thing, and any chance we have, like every time at Gen Con, we're always playing BattleTech stuff together, and we work together now, which is cool. And so when I see him at work and it's not busy, we talk about BattleTech.
That's awesome.
So it's
That
just
is really cool.
it's kind of cool.
Yes.
But I have my dad Jeff to thank for all that. This whole thing. It's all
That is very cool. So a second generation BattleTech aficionado, and now it is up to you now to pass the torch on to your
yeah.
children as they are just about coming of age,
Yeah,
as
so
I understand.
my son is 5, and so I have a Game of Armored Combat box that I'm going to paint for him over this next year, and then at his birthday, I'm going to give it to him and
That's awesome.
let him start playing. So
That is special stuff. That is really cool.
hopefully
So
he's actually into it. We'll see.
that's all we can hope for.
Yeah,
Well, you have a few chances. Maybe one of them will stick.
yeah. I'll have to buy more boxes.
That's it. I mean, that's the answer for everything. And with all the great minis coming out, you can't go wrong.
Oh, for
So
sure.
tell me, you are obviously the youngest mercenary commander in the Inner Sphere at age 5, but what's your favorite canon faction? Are you a clan guy, an Inner Sphere guy, and what faction within that?
Like I know the clans are kind of silly, and like everyone says like space furries and stuff, but I mean, like when I was a kid, I mean when I was playing BattleTech as a kid, the cartoon came out, and like the BattleTech cartoon, as campy as it is then, I mean that was like my life when I was a little kid, and yeah, I had the toys and all that kind of stuff, and was big into it. But Clan Wolf, man, like it just, I know like everyone says Clan Plot Armor and all this other stuff, but Clan Wolf. And
Oh man,
as
good
far as
stuff.
era, like any era is fine. I mean, I don't do the whole like no Dark Age thing. Like BattleTech is BattleTech. So
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I mean, of course, I like all the eras except for the jihad. Everything else is okay. I just kind of
yeah,
skip over.
I mean, Jihad's kind of like everybody. Everybody gets screwed.
Right.
And
All
like,
your favorite people die. Like, I don't want to watch that movie.
well, I think
It's like episode 8 in Star Wars. I don't want to watch it.
the thing that sucked about Jihad was like like we just didn't get any information because like isn't that around the time that like FASA went under and we were like
think
there's
you
going to
might
be
be
no
right.
more there's no more BattleTech anymore, like no one's producing it. There was like a period of time that felt
Yeah,
like at least that like there was no new BattleTech stuff
I think that's right. Yeah,
and
I
then
think you're right there. And
and
then
then like
they fast forwarded right
yeah,
when the clicks came
they
out.
did like the Dark Age and then like we got Jihad stuff going backwards, but it was always piecemeal and stuff, and so it
Mm,
was I don't necessarily think the events of the Jihad were hard. It was just how it was delivered because it wasn't concise and it wasn't easy to figure out. And like because you could follow like in the novels, you could follow the clan invasion and the Civil War and all this stuff. Um, it was
yeah.
great. But,
Yes, and the other thing you mentioned the cartoon, which I got into it a little bit before the cartoon. I just sort of stumbled on it at the hobby store and kind of fell in love with a box full of plastic robots as a young boy,
yeah,
and but when the cartoon came out, I mean, I have vivid memories of like walking through Toys R Us, which is now a thing of the past, sadly.
yeah,
But and just like looking, and the one day I saved up enough money, my mom let me buy the Mauler, right, which was like this big. It's like enormous. And
yeah.
you'd press a button on the top, and I think it shot 16 missiles out of each missile rack. Such a great cartoon, great toys. That was a
It was
good
cool.
time. um, so let's talk about the name Bushido. I
Yeah.
love it. Very catchy. So tell us where did you come up with that?
So like I'm a big like samurai culture nerd, and like I did a lot of martial arts growing up, and um, love a lot of like old samurai films and that kind of stuff. Just cool. And so I used to have like my page called like the Way of the Brush,
Yeah.
and then I found out on YouTube there's somebody else that had already had videos and stuff up that goes by the Way of the Brush. And I don't know if they're still making videos or not. And like I tried to post a video with the Way of the Brush or something, and like somebody was like trolling me on YouTube. So
Oh, jeez.
um when I got into CSO, I changed that over, and so I changed the name of the Facebook page and stuff. And
Right.
so it was just kind of like, well, Way of the Brush, Way of the Warriors, Bushido. So it kind of like melded that, and it
Yeah.
just kind of clicked. Um,
I like it.
so
So last evening, I watched Iron Fist, followed by an episode of Cobra Kai. I mean, have you been watching Iron Fist? I feel like that might be something you would like.
oh, like the Marvel thing.
Yeah. I think it's
Yeah.
new. I mean,
Oh, really?
he was in like a movie with a few of the other guys. I'm so bad with the superhero stuff,
Yeah.
but this series is actually it's really good. At least I think it's good. I'm easy to please though.
You're talking like
Uh,
the Netflix series.
yes,
Yeah, with like
exactly.
Sigourney Weaver's the bad guy in the second season, I think, or maybe I don't know.
I'm so bad with
Spoiler
these
alert.
things. Yeah, but I mean, whatever.
Yeah, that stuff's all cool.
Good stuff. All right. So the other thing I wanted to talk about before we dive into your artwork is the new CSO website.
Yeah.
Last time I talked with someone from the CSO gang over there. This website was still under construction. Now it's done. I've been on it. It's awesome. I think a lot of our subscribers and viewers would love to hear about it.
Sure.
So from your perspective, tell us a little bit about the site, some of the functionality, what people can get from it. Just a general rundown.
Yeah, I mean, I did no work for this site other than painting minis. So like Matt Fredrickson, I think kind of took the helm and did that. And I think there's some other people that, and I'm sorry if I don't know your names. That as far as that, I just paint minis, man.
Right. I'm just a painter,
So,
man.
so like, I mean, so there's two really cool things about it. One, it doesn't take a half hour to load a picture, which is great.
That's true.
Two, my tiger stripe stuff is finally on it as of today, which is
So good.
great.
We're going to look at that in just a minute.
But
So good.
I mean, like, I think we're planning on putting more on here, like tutorials and stuff like that. All of the old tutorials got pulled over, and I'm working on writing one for the NovaCat scheme, the Alpha Galaxy scheme I've been doing. I have all the
Very
pictures.
cool.
I have all the pictures taken. I just have to actually write it now.
I didn't even know that
Um,
was on there. So it's like a step by step
yeah, I
how
mean,
to.
there's a few like there's a really good
Cool.
tutorial by like Gunji no Kanrei about pigments, and he has another one on weathering that I use all the time and go back and reference. And so there's that. Um, I think we're gonna streamline like the how to submit to be an artist process, and that'll be not nearly as like hunting for what you have to do as much. And so right now, I think it's just all the units and all the miniatures from the old site are back over. We're adding new stuff in, and everything is pretty well organized. There's still some organizational stuff we probably should do.
As always,
by
with
we, I
all
mean,
things.
by we, I mean, like, not me.
Right.
But I mean, I think it's, I'm clicking through it right now, just trying to find stuff, and I think it works a lot better.
I like the search functionality, like I can type, like I was doing a repaint on my Donegal Guard. They were a little dated, and so I'm cycling out some of the old minis now that we got these great new ones, and I want to just kind of update the scheme, and I was looking for inspiration. So I just type it in, boom. And you get all of the different regiments, I guess, first, second, third, whatever they are, first, second, third, fourth, and you can click on them. You see the minis. I really liked how it was sort of organized. Very cool, very usable. And you're right, the load times are night and day from what they were on the old site, which is awesome. So very cool stuff.
So, and I think it like gives us a good kind of framework to build on and do more with. And I think Ryan's been helming the whole CSO channel thing, and he's done a great job with that. And that's kind of kept like Facebook and YouTube, while the website was kind of in flux, was kind of keeping us in public eye. And now we finally have this site that kind of has everything organized. So
yeah, it's very cool. So guys, if you have not checked it out, if you're looking for inspiration, if you want to see some amazing paint jobs, or you're just bored at work and you want something to do, head over to Camo Specs. Check out their website. It's phenomenal. Again, tons of just actual minis, right? Not graphical, renderings. It's actual painted minis. So I think that's really cool. And again, helped inspire me. I've been using the Camo Spec stuff for years now. So definitely encourage you guys to go check that out if you have not done so.
If I can geek out for just a second.
Yes.
So when I was in like middle school and high school, Lords of the Battlefield forum was like a thing. And I was on that like every day. I got my homework done and I was like on Lords of the Battlefield. And I think Camo Spec started around that time. And I was like, man, I can't wait to be I just want to be a Camo Spec artist. I'm like 14. I'm like, oh, I got to be a Camo Spec artist. And it took me a while, but finally achieved my dream.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, congratulations. I mean, we were talking a little bit before the call started here, and I mean, it was just, I mean, some of this work is incredible, and why don't we dive into it? I think it's a great segue. I mean, your artistry is next level. So, we have about 7 different, I guess, models or groups of models we'll step through. The first one I wanted to talk about was this dire wolf, right? This tiger stripe scheme. I think that's the one you were referencing in terms of it being available now on Camo Specs.
Yeah, so that was like the color scheme I used to like be my like unrepresented unit, because the requirement is you paint 4 existing units and then 1 unrepresented. And there is no text description of this unit at all, but it's on the cover of, I think, the tech manual. Okay. And it's phenomenal art of like 3 Mad Cats kind of stomping through some snow.
Yeah,
and
I'm looking at it right now, actually.
the Facebook page, BattleTech Painting and Customs, had like an old or new contest, and I tried to like reproduce that cover art. This would have been like 4 or 5 years ago, with some of like the Ironwood Metal resculpt Mad Cats and stuff. And that's kind of where it started for me. And then I just went on this like crazy, I'm going to paint a whole like cluster in tiger stripies. And like people joke and make fun of me, call me Clan War Tigger, but I don't know, man. It's cool. I like it. Cool. It's like striking. Like I've had them out at a couple like small like events and stuff on tables, and they stand out real well. Not practical camouflage per se, but it's just, I don't know. Orange is a fun color to work with.
Listen, tigers would beg to differ. Okay.
I know. And there's a lot you can do with it, and it's kind of my shtick. So I love it.
It's cool. I mean, so some things that stick out at me, not only about the Direwolf, but some of the others. I love the cockpit color, that the choice. It's sort of like a purplish, deep burgundy, plum color. And it's probably because there's about 50 colors on the cockpit, but I mean, it just looks really good. It stands out real nicely against the orange, but isn't like overwhelming. I also love like the dirt on the feet, right? The weathering on the feet. I used to do that with my Space Marines. I don't do that with my battle mechs. I don't know why. I should. It just looks so good, when you do it. It just brings them to life. So really cool job on that. I really love
Well,
this.
I mean, it's a way to cut some corners. Like, don't paint detail on your feet, just dirty them up. So,
Right, right. I love
um,
it. I
but
mean, hey, I'm all about efficiency.
I don't. I haven't been doing a lot of weathering, and I'm trying to get into some of that now with some of the newer stuff I've been doing. This would be a hard scheme to weather because I feel like it would just kind of clutter it up. But I just
Yeah,
my favorite color to work with or add to things is magenta, and Ryan jokes with me all the time because I throw magenta on everything. It's like Frank's Red Hot. I put it on everything, and so like the cockpit. I did these along with some like aero fighters, and I was trying to do like a different kind of cockpit style than I had been doing before, where I just kind of like jewel and blend out like lines and stuff. And
yeah.
so like I did a lot of like stippling to kind of create like a textured glass effect. I don't know. And
I can tell. I mean, and I'm looking at the Mad Cat now,
yeah,
which I'll bring up on the screen, and like it just looks really good. Um, it just again, right? It's not just your traditional jeweled cockpit, right? It's something different, but it still pops, right? And I really like that.
well, like the cockpit, like I always save for last. Like I always paint everything else on a mech, and then I'll come back to the cockpit and like, all
Mhm.
right, like this has got to pop. And
Right.
I try to think about colors critically, and blue and orange are contrasts, but I don't do my cockpits in blue because I hide blue other places, and so I
Yeah.
try to find another color that fits. And I just love purple. It's so cool.
It's a nice color. Not gonna lie, I do love a little purple on my mechs, as I've been known to paint some mechs with purple. The other thing here I love, and of course, the decals, right? Are these fighting piranha? Is that sort of the go-to for you for
Yeah, I mean
decals?
Brian Plunkett and Ray Arista, I mean they do a phenomenal job. The product's great. Anytime I send Brian an email for some decals, he has them in my hands within a week or
Yeah,
two, and
awesome.
um, they go on great. I don't use any micro set. I throw them on with some water. Like I cut them out. I have some paper towel that I've gotten damp. I let them sit on that for 5-10 minutes. I go do something else, and then I just put them on with a brush and 3, 4, 5 layers of microsol and cut some dull coat, and they're done. So
Yeah, they look awesome. I mean,
the
it's on my to-do list for this year.
uh, the wolf
Decals.
the wolf decals on these, I painted a little white banner under to help them pop out a little more because the
Oh,
red
I
wolf
see
head
that.
kind of hides, or it's harder to see. Joshua Bressel gave me that idea a few years ago, and I just kind of ran with that. So
I love it. And then here's a group shot of, I mean, some of these mechs I can identify, right? One's like the Savage Wolf. I don't know what the other ones are because I'm bad with the late era mechs. Is that a Giuliano in the back?
yeah, so like the Wolf Clan, they took over a bunch of Merrick space, and so they have a bunch
Yeah,
of Merrick mechs too. And so yeah, it's a Giuliano, and
that's very cool.
the two in the back. So the Giuliano is like back left, and then
Yeah,
there's a Tomahawk 2, I think
Tomahawk.
C in the back. That's the other big one.
Yeah,
Um, and then in front of that is a Savage Wolf, and then a
yeah.
Wolf in H, and then a Night Wolf.
That's the one on the in the front left, the Night Wolf.
Yeah.
What are are these Dark Age era?
Yeah, these are all kind of Dark Age, Late Republic era mechs.
Okay. I'm bad. I'm bad with my visual recognition in that era. Well, I mean, and it comes together, like you said. You could imagine these on a tabletop, and it would really bring it. All of them together really brings the pattern to life, the complexity, right, the detail. The consistency across these cockpits. Now these ones look a little more blue than maybe your other ones, but
Yeah,
I mean,
so
even still, it looks so good.
why jewel with one color when you can jewel with two? And so I stole that idea from Dale Ida, or Wonder Gecko,
Yep.
because he did it once. I'm like, oh, I got to do it now, and
Yeah.
so that's kind of been my main cockpit way, like the past year. But yeah, it's just why jewel with one, you can jewel with two.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's jump into my next favorite one here, which is the Nova Cat. So I absolutely love this. When I saw the pictures for this mech, so many things jumped out at me. Um, just the very natural paint fade, from top to bottom, especially on the legs, right? You have that sort of the highlights of lighter, or maybe more midnight blue at the top, and then sort of fades into that very sort of almost black, I guess, or dark gray at the bottom with the weathering. The gun barrels are awesome. Like I'm excited when I just paint red in my gun barrels. You did like red with orange that fades to like a yellow dot, like in the, I guess that's the laser side. And then, on the bigger barrels, you've got the greens. The cockpit on this, it looks like a freaking like, it reminds me of like, it looks like it's glowing.
The funny story about this mech is when we did the Gen Cant virtual stuff for Camo Specs, I did a hour or two session because I did all the Nova Cats. Well, not all the Nova Cats. I did most of the Nova Cats or some of the Nova Cats for the CSO diorama we did kind of across the country. So a bunch of different artists, me, Matt Fredrickson, Dale Ida, and Peter Wart all contributed to that. And kind of sent stuff to Dale, and Dale had the not fun task of putting it all together on some kind of board and taking pictures. So we had some kind of 2020 Gen Con diorama because that's a tradition.
Yeah.
And kind of last minute, I kind of ended up doing the Nova Cats too because I was doing most of the ComGuard, like ComGuard Aero Fighters and stuff for the hot drop. And
Oh, I remember the diorama now that you say
yeah,
the ComGuard fighters. Yes,
and
that was
so
awesome.
I like had to kind of come up with a way to do like that pattern, and I had to come up with a way to do it quickly. But after we showed that diorama off, like my little video session I did for Gen Con was how I did the star pattern. I'm an idiot because I forgot to hit record on Twitch, and so everyone that was there on that gives me a hard time that I didn't hit record. But there's a little bit of airbrushing there, like initially to kind of get like the initial like where it should be at. And this was a demonstration piece. So like the Alpha Galaxy scheme classically, like the blue is just in the center of the torso. I spread it out because it's such a small miniature. And I was demonstrating on camera how to do it. And this one, like of all the Nova Cats I've done, because I've done probably 10 of these mechs, this one I put the most time into because I really love the Nova Cat mech, and the miniature is fantastic now. It's really cool. So I really invested in this one. But I kind of did a dark blue kind of airbrush across the shoulders and the chest, and got some overspray like on the legs and stuff I just left there. But then like the rest of this was actually kind of glazing on paint with a sponge to kind of create like a
Really
nebula like pattern. And so
interesting.
I use a lot of scale 75 paints primarily, and they're super matte, which isn't necessarily great for this, but on a little piece of plastic stuff your miniatures come in, I'd mix like Vallejo glaze medium, some water, and a little bit of paint in like pluck foam, and then dab a bunch of that off, and then I'd sponge it on the miniature, and progressively get lighter and lighter and closer to the center. And I did that from like a dark blue to like a like Caribbean blue color, and then ice yellow is like one of my favorite colors to use for highlights. It's an ancient Bushido secret that ice yellow is the best color ever.
That scroll, I imagine, penned in a scroll.
And so like ice yellow really helps that blue pop. And then like once that's all dry, I mean, it looks a lot different before, but once it's all dry, I actually took the blue Games Workshop contrast paint and did a couple layers of that with the airbrush, and not with a regular brush. The contrast paint's kind of interesting because it almost has the pigment intensity of an ink, but it's very viscous. But it goes through an airbrush like super well. Like you don't really need to thin it. I do a little bit because I just can't not thin stuff. But
right.
I
didn't even think about using it with an airbrush. Actually,
I thin it a little bit.
Pretty cool.
I don't have pictures of it, but I did a Shrike, like Turkina Keshik Shrike, that it's like a metallic green, and it was a base coat of metallic, and then I used the contrast greens and yellows to like make that green work. I ended up gifting that mini to my dad, so I never took pictures of it formally, but it goes through an airbrush really well. There's some good videos on YouTube, like Vincent Venturella does a video about how he does it with that kind of stuff, and it's kind of a neat material to work with. I mean, you can slap it on with a brush just fine. I think you get a smoother, kind of cleaner coat through an airbrush, but airbrushing is a hard thing to learn. So after that, I just kind of re-edge highlighted certain bits to make them pump out or pop out more, and kind of try to get the highlights up, and then added the stars on.
The stars are great. I mean, not only are the stars great on the torso section, but the clan star, which I imagine that's what it is on the, the visual left leg, right? I'm looking at the
Oh,
picture there.
that's a decal.
Oh, that's a decal.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
well,
that.
because it's as good as the stars that you painted on the chest. So either way,
Thanks.
uh,
It's a decal. I can't claim that one. So
it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it
thank
all
you.
comes together so nicely. It's phenomenal. The other thing I love about this picture, which is not necessarily something you painted, love the background. I love the street lights. I now want to buy little street lights for our terrain. You've got like the rubble in the background. That is so cool. Brings the whole thing to life for me. I really love it.
This is how much I hate painting terrain, though. I've been in CSO for 2 years. This is my only backdrop for miniatures, so I need to do more.
Oh man, I
And
still love
get
it.
some other backdrops out there, but
I love it.
kind of the fun thing here, and like, so like the canon description of this scheme is like, this black paint scheme with a blue field on the torso with white stars. I mean,
Right.
I was very liberal in interpretation with that. So some of the stars have little coronas of like fluorescent red or pink and some yellow, and there's obviously magenta hidden in different parts and stuff. And
Obviously.
like, I mean, like color, like it's still blue. It still reads as blue, but you can sneak other things into color and stuff and really make things really interesting and kind of create visual interest that way. And so it's fun, and it's not the classic description, but it still fits the bill, I guess. Or the other guys let me do it, and it's on the site now.
Well, I love it. I think it's fantastic. It is it's definitely one of the nicest single miniatures I think I've ever seen
Well,
in
thank you.
terms of just detail and realism. You look at these things and, they're supposed to be 70-ton war machines, and sometimes it's hard to capture the scale. Um, you know, but I think you did it really well here. This
Thank you.
this just looks really well done.
The actual process though for the blue is really easy, and my wife got me a like high end like camera for shooting miniature
Nice.
videos and stuff. And so if I can find the time, I'm gonna do another video of it and redeem
Yeah.
myself. But
Don't forget to hit record and let
yeah,
us know. We'll promote a little bit. I mean,
sure.
I would love to see it. I'm sure it'll be great. So let's move on to my personal favorite here, the Kodiak.
This is a Wave 2 prototype. So
This is a
I
Wave 2 prototype.
yeah, most of the miniatures I sent you are all Kickstarter prototype minis.
So cool. I love it.
So this one was kind of a frustrating story because I thought I was done with the white like 12 different times, and then I'd show it to Dale. And Dale's like, dude, this sucks. And
Oh my goodness.
he's like, this is like tabletop for you. You should, because I was all like, oh, I'm so proud of this white. Look at this. And he's like, this looks terrible.
I can only imagine what goes on in like the CSO dojo, unacceptable.
Dale and I go back and forth a lot. He probably is tired of me.
It's funny.
Initially, like, I primed it gray, and then there's a trick you can airbrush with white ink, and it's super smooth. And it's like, well, this scheme. I can't remember who did it, but for one of the Gen Con dioramas, the Blood Chapel thing, all the Ghost Bear mechs were white with these red claw marks on them. So this is Silver Root Keshik for Alpha Galaxy. And so I was like, oh, that'll be cool for this Kodiak. That'll be a neat scheme to do. And because none of the other Ghost Bear schemes are that interesting to me, I guess. But the claw marks, that's cool.
Yeah, it's super cool.
So primed it gray, and then did a bunch of airbrushing with the white. And then after I do that and it's cured and dried and all that, I'll do a little like that sponge glazing with some white ink to kind of rough up the texture a little bit. So that it doesn't look like just a smooth flat panel, like it looks like it's been chipped and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And I was like, oh, Dale, look at this. And he's like, this is terrible. And so I started playing with, and so the idea that we kind of come up with was like doing some blue, like shading with blues from above and purples from below. And so I just kind of like a mad chemist was mixing a bunch of stuff on my palette. And so I used like some of the blue contrast paint.
I can see it now that you say it. Yeah.
Gray, and I tried to like do all my panel shading from above in that kind of blue color. And then I took that same color and added some gray and purple to it and did that on places from below. And that looked more interesting. It kind of gave it an icy look, but it was too bright. There wasn't enough contrast in it. And I've been working really hard on like airbrush control, and being confident with that. And I use a Patriot 105 and a Sotar 2020. And a Sotar 2020 is my detail brush. A Patriot 105 is kind of a generalist brush, but I just kind of went balls out, and I mixed some super thin kind of dark gray in my Patriot, and just to see how good I could get at trigger control. And then I shaded everything after I'd painted it with some super thin gray paint through an airbrush, to kind of get it to where it's at like now, whether you get like it's white, but I mean, parts of it look pretty gray and stuff. And then I re-edge highlighted it and did some chipping and painted the claw marks and stuff. But this was a challenge for me to try and like get good with my airbrush to do shading, because like blending like that by hand takes forever. And an airbrush is quick, but the downside to it is you can do way too much, and so it's trigger control and stuff. And like I've watched a lot of like Angel Heralda's videos on airbrushing, and like he always has up in the corner like what his fingers are doing while he's airbrushing, and so it's kind of neat to see that. And I've been doing some private coaching with somebody else, Aaron Lovejoy, and like he's like, yeah, get good at your trigger control. And so I've been practicing that a lot. And so I hadn't done it on a mech yet, and I did it on this one. The place between like the eyes and like the nose cockpit areas, I guess, like that was like an airbrush, like two bursts from my Patriot.
Right.
And
very
I was
careful,
like, super nervous.
Yeah, I mean, right. I was just gonna say, like, if you screw that up, you're like back to square one. I mean,
yeah.
So that,
but it was a fun challenge, and it was neat to do, and that. So this was a lot of fun to do, and I want to try to replicate the scheme a little bit, so I have a small kind of like star of this.
I was gonna, it's the first thing I was thinking of when you're talking about mixing paints, right? Is like it's so hard sometimes to replicate that. If you don't remember what you did, but yeah, I mean, getting that kind of documented or in a place where you could replicate it and then share that out. I love this scheme. I mean, my shading would not look as good as yours, and I'm awful with white. I would probably cheat and buy GW white contrast paint, but I would love to try this scheme because I think it's so cool with the claw marks. I mean, which is something you sort of were like, I did all this work, then I did the claw marks. The claw marks, that alone is masterful in my opinion. I think it's just really cool. So how did you, I mean, I get, very fine brush and just outline some red and some white in between. Like, what did you do there?
So I do almost all my brush work with a 2.0 Kolinsky Sable brush. So like, as long as you have a good point on a brush, doesn't matter how fine it is. And the nice thing about working with a little bigger brush is the belly can hold more paint, and so you're not going back to your palette every stroke, which is kind of nice. So anytime I'm doing kind of like freehand stuff, like Davian Guard stripes or like Tiger Stripies or this kind of stuff, I use a little bit of Liquitex Flow Improver, and I'll put a bead of it on my palette. And when I'm mixing up the paint on my wet palette, I'll get a little bit of that in there. Flow Improver kind of helps the paint flow off the brush easier. And then like for these, like since there's 3 stripes, I think the text was like 3 claw marks in these locations. You do the middle one first, and I try to find like kind of landmarks and make little dots to kind of like trace the line and then draw the line, and then kind of add like jaggedness to it. So it's kind of a process. But it's a lot easier to kind of like stipple out a line and then smooth it out than it is just to paint a line.
That's a great tip.
Like you can make small dots in a line and then smooth those dots out. And that gives you pretty good control and that kind of thing. And it with all these things, it just takes practice. I mean, I've been playing BattleTech since I was 5. I've also been painting mechs since I was 5. So it just takes time. And like, I don't think it's going to take anybody 30 years, but, you do things enough, but paint,
very cool.
Paint needs to be kind of thin. You don't want it chunky, and mixing on a wet palette's great because you can keep paint relatively wet for a while. But yeah, that's how.
Yeah. The other thing that jumped out at me when I first saw this one was the glow effect on the, right out of the lasers onto the claw. So very cool. I really love that. It's got like the green, that's sort of, at least I think that's what that is, right? Sort of reflecting onto those,
Yeah.
the sort of the housings of the claws. I think that, the fade from sort of the lighter, bright green to the darker green to the black, which is sort of like, I guess, a wash, I would imagine. Just really well done there. It's really cool.
Thank you. I mean, that was all done by hand. The belly laser, the large laser in the center, that was done with the airbrush too. That
Oh,
was
wow.
um
Really cool.
that
I
was
like the
just
white dot in the middle,
it was,
like the,
an ice yellow dot, a white dot, and then a few coats of some red inks through the airbrush, and that was it. So
very cool. Very cool.
OSL is really easy to do with an airbrush. The trick is not overdoing it, and there's a really fine line between not enough and too much.
Yeah.
And I by no means am an expert. Like, I'm still learning a lot of this stuff, like some of the more advanced painting techniques. But
You can fool me. All right. You
well,
can tell me you're an
thank
expert.
you.
I believe you.
Thank you.
So, so one of the other ones I really loved, and I asked you to bring this one on, specifically, was this Warhawk. Love this thing. So this is just a meaty monster of a mech. From a stat perspective, I love to talk about this thing, and just the model. I feel like now, it sort of looks as scary as it is on the table. Some of the older Warhawks were very tiny, and obviously you don't have any mechs next to this one for scale, but I imagine this one is probably substantial in size compared to.
It has presence. I mean,
Yeah, it's awesome.
Compared to like the new Kickstarter Daiichi, it's a little shorter and a little less wide, but I mean, it looks like an 85-ton mech.
Perfect. I'm so excited about getting my hands on these Wave 2 mechs.
Yeah,
so the thing that
the Wave 1 stuff is cool. The Wave 2 stuff, I mean, Wave 2 is gonna be so cool. Like when it's
so cool.
just all the two seats are in it. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, I agree. So this one, the thing that I really loved about this is the heat sink work. Love the star pattern. I mean, to be just don't want to pour any gasoline on a fire here, but I actually like the Nova Cat, the way it extends into the arms. I think that artistically, I know it might not be canon, but artistically, I like that.
Well, the challenge is, like, I mean, there's a lot of miniatures still, and like, I one of the things I've been trying to work on is painting, like, other than just the one golden shot of the miniature, like making like multiple views interesting to look at.
Yeah.
And like the downside to like the way the text for this scheme is that it's in the center, so you really only see it from the front, and there's a lot of mech there still. And so
Yes.
I was trying to come up with something that would make the rest of it somewhat interesting, so that like you could turn it and always find something that you're like, oh, that's cool, and be like, oh, okay,
yeah.
there's the front of the mech, and put it down.
And you did a great job with it. I'm looking at the side view right now. A few things pop out. Obviously the decal work, like the caution stripes, always a great finishing touch. But those heat sinks, right? The red glow effect, and the barrel, right? It's got that, like, that cooked look to it, sort of that torch titanium effect. Although it's not like as bright as you might normally see with like the bright purples and blues, but it still has that nice fade, a nice transition, and kind of rolling around to the back of the mech. I think the back of the mech is actually my favorite view. It's just so cool because you can see, the glow effects, the caution stripe, the star pattern, just everything really comes together, which is great because that's the part of the mech you're probably looking at the most when you're playing it on your side. So,
yeah, sure.
But yeah, dude,
if it's not in the
really
dirt,
cool.
so
Yeah. So yeah, tell me about some of the tools, tricks, techniques on this one. Some things that you remember. I love this model and I love the paint job.
So I'm always trying to find a better way to do black, and so the black I did different than I did on the Nova Cat, because I'm always trying to find a, like, black's a hard color to do, white's a hard color to do, but like black, like it either looks gray or it doesn't look like anything. And
Right.
so like I did a lot of oils for this,
Okay.
just to try and like experiment. It has big flat surfaces, and then I kind of got this thing almost looking like light gray, and then went back to contrast paint and did some like black contrast paint that was mixed with some violet ink and some sepia, I think, and then thinned that down and hit this on the airbrush that way to kind of mute it down. And you have to go back and re-highlight some things to get that to work. But it's kind of a fun way to do black because I think it creates some interest and some depth because, you know, if you just paint things black, it just gets kind of boring. The
Yeah.
heat sink effect, I don't even know if those are supposed to be heat sinks.
Well,
Those are
I
just
think they're heat sinks.
they just look like, I mean, I don't know. So
Who knows? Yeah, right. Just like random panels, but I mean, hey, they're heat sinks now, as far as I'm concerned. It's canonized in my mind.
all right. Well, I initially I initially painted the boxes like an olive drab color.
Mhm.
And I don't really, I mean, I don't think that really shows through now with the amount of stuff that's been on it. But after that, I took some white ink. And again, white ink is great because like white paint, like white acrylic paint, is thick and pigment doesn't always hold up real well. When you thin it, it gets kind of watery. Well, white ink is already watery but saturated in pigment, and so it's really easy to get good coats of white ink and stuff. So I kind of outlined the recesses around like the olive drab boxes with white ink and did that 3 or 4 times to kind of get a nice intense white. And then by hand, kind of glazed on some neon yellow, some neon orange, and some fluorescent red. The neons were, I think, scale 75 acrylic paints. The fluorescent reds, Dollar and Romney ink. And it wasn't quite looking where I wanted it to be. So I kind of did some more white and then whipped out the airbrush and hit it with a few sprays of some like cadmium yellow ink and then some fire red ink. I let the kind of yellow, like if you look at the one side view and stuff, I let the yellow kind of spread out beyond the heat sink, like it's like radiating heat out. So some of the black has a little yellow or red tint to it. And then
Yeah,
like once
and
I
I
had
would.
that, once I had that kind of burning red, like hot orange effect, I just added some small dots of white, kind of like where I thought it'd be the hottest. And that was it.
Love it.
So
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the order of operations here very important, right? I was actually right when you said it's funny. I was looking right at that effect, specifically, that right side view, and you can kind of even see some of the red on the elbow disc, right, right at where you had edge highlighted it. There's some reflection there. Very cool. And then again, on that upper shoulder, you can see that yellow radiating out there as well. So I want to talk about the Shadow Cat. So this one has some history. This is the one, that you pilot when you're back in like 5-year-old mode, right? And
yeah,
and you're a boy dreaming, what mech would I drive?
I mean
We've all been there. Let's say.
it's a Shadow Cat. Like I had the connects, like the Connect, like Shadow Cat, like toy. You
Yeah,
like build out of connects and stuff. Had little foam darts that shoot. I had
so
that.
cool.
Like all the Mech Warrior games. Like I can't remember which one, but you started in a Shadow Cat. Like Shadow Cat's like it's my mech. I love it.
Yeah.
Um, so like after. Because I got into CSO, I think Gen Con 2019, right around that time, and I'd
Okay.
met like the Wolfnet radio podcast guys, and a bunch of my buddies locally that play Alpha Strike, the Indian Alpha Strike group, they were all kind of getting into this Wolfnet radio podcast thing. I was like, well, what is this? And so it's like a group, they play Mega Mech. You personally have like a mech. And so this is my ride for Wolfnet radio podcast. It's been shot out for me a few times. The Gauss rifle never hits, but
Ah,
it's my mech, man. And
it's really
so
cool.
I didn't want to like have Brushido as my call sign there. So I was like, well, hot sauce is gonna be my call sign. When I play the BattleTech computer game, that was my call sign in the BattleTech computer game, was like hot sauce. So one of the crawls was joking that I had to paint the entire Gauss rifle like a Tabasco sauce bottle, and I thought that was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But I tried to paint a Tabasco sauce bottle on the side of the Gauss rifle, so it was there, and I did a little sriracha rooster on the left leg for
Love it.
funsies. And the color scheme they came up with is kind of fun, and they've had me paint a few of the guys in the command lance or whatever, had me paint their mechs and stuff, and it's kind of a fun thing to do. But I like the grays and the orange. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, it's a nice contrast, with sort of the white in the middle, I guess that is, or looks white to me at least, to my novice eye. And then yeah, the dark gray on the outside. I really like the scheme. It's pretty slick. And obviously great job on the cockpit. I do see the magenta in there. I do see the multiple colors, right? Sort of fades from that, again, that purple to that blue. So really, it just really
That's
well
the first.
done.
This is the first mech I tried that on. It's my wild berry blue Pop Tart
Yes.
cockpit, but it's just
Oh
fun.
my
I mean,
goodness.
anytime you can add interest and stuff, and I mean, like you don't have to. I mean, you paint things the way you want to paint them. It's just I like making things as interesting as I can and making things as cool as I can.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, it definitely brings it to life. I would agree. Again, this is a really cool one. I like the pattern of it. I like the backstory on it too. Very good stuff. So now, shall we get into the grand finale, the
yeah,
exciting
sure.
stuff? Yeah. So these are. So we're going to show you two Stormcrows. These are the brand new multi-part kits. So you've got two. You've got one that is in that Nova Cat, right? Um,
Yeah,
Pattern, and then another one which is a Smoke Jaguar pattern as well. And both of these models are different configurations. So I don't know. Talk us through it. Talk us
yeah.
through what it was like, not only from a painting perspective, but I think a lot of people would be interested to know, since you are an early adopter here, what was it like putting it together? How was the quality? I mean, I know I'm super excited about getting my hands on multi-part mechs. I mean, the things I will magnetize, it's endless possibilities. So,
Um,
yeah, tell us all about this one.
yeah. So I got a random email from Ryan. He's like, "Hey, you want to paint some of Brent's new Stormcrows?" It's like, yeah. Can I keep
Yeah,
them? like,
right.
and so like, and Ryan let me know like very clear. It's like, these aren't production run. These are their first few attempts at casting. So, the casting they haven't nailed that down yet. And there were mold slips and stuff that you'd kind of see, and that kind of casting you'd expect. Cleaning these up, like I personally hate cleaning up the new Kickstarter minis. The sculpts look great. It's just there's so many mold lines, and every time I go to paint one, I'm like, damn it, I missed a mold line.
I missed one. Right. I'm in the same boat. Right. I'll prime it. I'm like,
And like it gets to the point where I'm like, I'm gonna hide that, and I'm
right.
not even gonna clean it up anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
But I mean, so these like a lot cleaner as far as that goes, and the plastic's easier to clean. I think it's a little crisper and a little like less soft. Like the
Mhm.
Kickstarter minis are bendy. I didn't feel like this was as bendy. It kind of reminds me of like working with like other resin miniatures
Okay.
that I've worked with from other lines.
Yeah.
And files down real well. I had to do a little bit of resculpting and stuff because of the mold slips, but these are early casts and this isn't their full go yet. But went together real easy. Each leg's a separate part. The pelvis is a part, the torso, and then each of the arms. Um,
I mean, I
uh,
love I'm looking at the NovaCat one, which is, I believe you had mentioned that was the B config,
yeah,
the gun, right? The cannon. It's so, oh, I think it's a Gauss rifle, isn't it? In the B config?
the
I
the
want,
B has the B has an Ultra 20 in
oh,
the
it's an
arm.
Ultra
Yeah,
20. Okay.
the big beefy gun.
So, yes, I knew it had something devastating. It's just, I mean, the detail on it's fantastic, right? And I think, of course, you did a great job bringing it all out with the paint. And then the other one, the Jaguar one, just talking about the sculpt here. So this is, obviously very different pose entirely. And the this is, what did you say? This is the
It's the
Tukid, the
TC
TC.
configuration, I think
Yeah.
is how they call it. Really, the only thing that's different between this one and the other one is the I just turned it to the right instead of the left, and then it's got a different left arm. So there's a Gauss rifle in that left arm, and then the right arm only has 4 lasers instead of
Oh,
the 6.
interesting. I didn't
Yeah,
even
so
notice.
it has
Look at that.
two less lasers and stuff, which is, I mean, the variant. I think it's like a Gauss 4-year mediums and a targeting computer. It kind of sucks. The temporary 2 gig configurations were only temporary because some of the TCs are better than the stock ones.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Brent had asked for this one to be an Alpha Galaxy for Smoke Jaguar. Um, And so it was working with a lot of gray, which is challenging to make look interesting because it's just a bunch of gray, but sneaking colors in. And I mean, the one thing, like if I could give anyone a pointer is like, don't be afraid to mix stuff in with, like, if you want it to be gray, you can add some green to your gray, or you can add some blue or some red. I mean, you can do all kinds of stuff with gray. It doesn't have to be gray. It still reads as gray, but there's purple and blues and yellows hidden in there. So
Yeah.
helps things pop out. But
I like the job you did on the leopard spots. And I was sort of wondering. I was thinking back to our conversation earlier about the claws on the kodiak, right? And I wonder, what was the secret here to getting them to look so good? Because I know if I tried to freehand a bunch of spots, there would definitely be way too many in one. Like one arm would have like 50 spots, and the other arm would have like 3. So did you kind of do that trick where you sort of did little dots and kind of spaced everything out? I mean, because it looks really well done.
thank you. I mean, I'm not super proud of those because I've seen some other people do Jaguar spots that look better. I was kind of in a hurry to get this one done. But I really, so with this, I did the dark gray first. And I kind of did it all across the model. And then I went back with the light gray. And the dark gray, I did 3 small dots like in a triangle, and then I filled it in with the lighter gray. And I guess like I would do a section at a time. When I do the dark gray, I do like the whole torso, and then I like pull my face away from it and like look at it from 12, 18 inches away. I'm like, okay, it looks like it's evenly covered, and looks random because like you don't want camo to
Right.
you don't want it to be like linear.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's like, okay,
Exactly.
this looks random enough, and it looks like it's covered enough, and I'll move on to do the arm, and I do the arm, and like, okay, does it match the torso? And so I don't do the whole mech, but I don't really map it. I guess I just kind of do, and it's just it was just a lot of stippling.
Yeah, it looks real good. Again, love the weathering. Sort of the mud on the feet. Very cool. And I'm still sort of can't believe I did not notice there was a different number of lasers on one arm versus the other. I think that is so cool. That they have that attention to detail
Yeah.
on the variants. So that's what we can expect from these. And I would imagine if some future variants will have different torso weapons and things like that, we would expect to see entirely different sort of torso sections or maybe parts you would need to glue on or whatever. Um, Speaking of glue, do you just use regular regular sort of crazy glue or a cyanoacrylate or something along those
Yeah, I've
lines?
been using there's like a gel Gorilla Glue, so it doesn't bond
Yes, that's what I use.
gel.
Yes,
It's
it's
great.
so good.
It's really strong too, which I was surprised because I was like, oh, gel, it's probably not gonna like adhere real well. It adheres great. I love it. It's worked on plastics and
Yeah.
resins and metals and
I actually accidentally started using that. Regale you with my story.
go for
I
it.
used Bob Smith Industries is the name of you can get it on like Amazon and other places, and it's a cyanoacrylate. It's very good. The only problem is like I don't use enough, and it's just like the tip hardens, and like even if you cut some of it off, like it just becomes unusable. And I think over time just it goes bad and it doesn't
Yeah.
So
I
anyway,
used Zap-A-Gap forever, like the green Zap-A-Gap, and
yeah,
the same thing. Like you couldn't get the cap on because you'd get all crusty, and like I tried to make sure I'd like clean it off, and it would still
doesn't
get all
matter.
crusty and gunked up, and then I'd have like half a tube of glue, and I couldn't get it out because the nozzle was like
Right, right,
and
and yeah, and the
none of my
Gorilla
local
Glue.
hobby stores really carry super glue anymore, and so I went to Walmart, and I'm like, oh, this looks like it'll work.
This will work,
it's
right? Yeah,
it's worked great. So
yeah. I had some laying around in my toolbox unopened, and I was like, oh, I guess this is gonna do. It was like when we got the Kickstarter stuff. I'm like, I need to glue stuff because I like cut a
yeah,
bunch of my Kickstarter minis up like a madman and reposed them.
you're brave.
Yeah. And so I needed the glue, and of course, after I was done cutting up, I was like, oh no, what have I done? I can't, I have no glue. Funny stuff. Anyway, so back on point here. So these two, both of these look great, and I didn't mean to sort of speed over. If we want to jump back to the NovaCat one,
Oh, I mean, it's okay.
I mean, I see the same, just amazing paintwork that we saw in the Warhawk. The black is not quite black, right? It matches very well. I still love the Ultra 20 barrel.
Yeah, I love that it's just not a Gatling gun. Like I love they gave it a housing, and you can, if you look inside, there's like 3 little holes. So it looks like a rotary kind of gun, but I love that they gave it a housing.
Yeah.
And I think that was super neat.
Yeah, it's so beefy, and I like that you did, you almost did like that copper color, which you can see on sort of the trim of the lasers, on the opposite arm. And you don't,
Yeah,
it's not like a common theme color that's necessarily prevalent, but it just blends in so well. I mean, I don't know. You say you hide colors. It almost matches in some of the, I guess, the undertones of the black. Almost, I want to
yes,
say.
that was kind of base coated with Vallejo Hull Red, and Vallejo Hull Red's a super color to work with. I use it for my chipping. That's like my main chipping color,
Okay.
and it also is commonly what I use when I base my red minis. But um, uh, and then I kind of made it more brownish, but I was mixing oranges in with that. Because I mean, like I could have left it black. Someone asked me that looked at it, I was like, why didn't you just leave that black? Why is it brown? I was like, well, because it creates more contrast, right? I mean,
Yeah,
like it's
I
it's
like
more
it.
visual interest. It creates, I mean, it adds some detail to the mini. And then I didn't have, it was just that barrel was that color. I was like, well, I'll find something on the lasers to do. So like little, like I don't know, like cooling jackets. I don't know, but I mean, like you can always be done like a step. You never have to take that extra step. It's just if you want
Yes.
to, you can do extra, and you can go back over something with another coat of like a glaze, or you can go back over something with an ink. And I mean, like you always have that. That I mean, no miniature is really ever done. Like you can always do more. It's just when are you satisfied?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I guess I geek out about painting, and I try really hard to like make stuff as interesting as I can because I mean, I'm trying to become like kind of competitive as far as miniature painting goes. I've been working on a Golden Demon entry forever,
Oh,
um,
nice.
and not to talk about Games Workshop or anything. I
No,
don't
no,
play Games Workshop
it's all,
games,
it's
but
all, it's all, oh, you don't really?
no, I don't.
We used to
I
back
don't
in the
really,
day.
but I used to a long time ago. But I mean, primarily I just I don't have enough time to play as in generals, and if I play, I'm going to play BattleTech.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Same.
so it's just I like to paint, and I like to push myself, and so I do a lot of things that you don't really have to do, but I'm just trying to push it further and make it the best I can make it. So
Yeah. I mean, well, it looks great. I mean, and not to sort of belabor on this one, but the cockpit again, this is like a whole new style, and I love it. It's really cool. It almost, I'm,
it's two color, and like so all the Nova Cats I've been doing yellow and magenta is the two colors because those stand out against the blue.
mhm.
Um, and there's no reason for it. Like the Kodiak was green and red because those colors stood out against the white background, and
Yeah.
it's just whatever's going to stand out. I don't adhere to any rules about laser or cockpit colors. So
I mean, right. And like, who's to say that a Defiance Industry medium laser is the same color
yeah,
as, Martel or whatever? Like, come on, guys, cut us some slack here. But I like, honestly, when I look at this cockpit, and maybe this wasn't the intended effect, but, I imagine like the world ablaze around this mech and sort of the flames like reflecting off its cockpit, right? And the same thing sort of with the Massacre, the Warhawk, that color tone. It just really gives it this like God of War type of look, and I just think again, bringing these tiny little miniatures up to that megalithic scale that they're supposed to be. I think you really did a good job, and I think the
thank
new
you.
models do a good job of allowing you to do that.
Yeah,
Because they have the detail there to paint. Tom and I talked a little bit about that when we were doing some of the unboxing and some of his Jade Falcon stuff. Like the old, at least for us, the old models, like they just didn't have the same level of detail that these things have. So these are really cool, really excellent job. I mean, every single one of these. I know this is just a small. When we initially talked, I was like, "Can you give me like 5 or 6 or 7?" Like, and you were like, "That's it." I'm sure that you have thousands of things that look just like this, which I hope to find on the Camo Specs website soon. But this was awesome, man. Thank you so much for walking us through these.
you're welcome.
Any other insider information you have on these multi-part kits? Do we know when they might be available or when we might
I
see?
I don't. I've been kind of like harping at maybe getting a chance to paint one of the Black Knights because I've seen one of like because these are 3D sculpted, so I've seen I've seen, I think, one of the prints of the Black Knights, and the legs look like they're like upper leg, lower leg, foot, and so
Right.
very posable. And the new Black Knight miniature, like the renders look fantastic, and I
Mm,
can't wait to get some paint on one.
yeah.
But I've been kind of like, hey Brent, I want to paint a Black Knight. See if he lets me or not. But
Yeah.
um, I don't know when they're coming. I think they're trying to get their casting process a little more streamlined and kind of a little less error prone. Not that
Yeah.
these were bad casts, but I mean,
It's
they
a learning process,
yeah,
I'm
it's a
sure. I
learning
can't even
process. I mean,
imagine.
I've tried to press mold stuff in my garage. It's terrible. um, uh, it's just one of those things. So like, I think they're coming soon. Um,
Yeah.
I
Well, I
got to
mean,
shoot.
we got Wave 2. I have enough stuff to spend my money on.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I think we can wait a little bit. Let the bank account
yeah.
let like some investments gain.
Yeah. Recover so you can
Right.
hide
Exactly.
it from the
Right. Yeah.
wife. No, I don't know like dates or anything that are coming, but I think soon-ish, um, and all that. So we all get to share the love, and I don't get to just be the only one painting them. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm excited about it. I mean, I can't wait. I'm very
well,
amped about just the decision. I think it's the right decision. You
it's
know.
interesting. I mean, they're going to be casting in the United States, and I mean, doing this kind of stuff, and like casting resin or plastic. I mean, Ironwind still casts in Ohio,
Hmm.
and Ironwind metals, like for all the hate sometimes some of the minis get on the internet, like they've carried the BattleTech miniature line forever,
Yeah.
and
It's true.
when we didn't really have anything, they were still putting stuff out, and there's good Ironwind metals miniatures. I mean, the Giuliano is a fantastic miniature,
Agreed.
and
Yeah.
so I mean, there's certain things that scale wise didn't hit or anything, but they still have carried BattleTech for so long. So I really hope they get to cast some of the newer Omnis and stuff with some variant parts and stuff. But I'm really excited that like what Brent and Blaine are doing with Creative Juggernaut, and it's just another opportunity. And plastic's a fun material to work with, especially when it doesn't fray.
Right.
So reposing and cutting stuff up is a lot easier than metal. So
Well, yeah, and I mean, I look forward to kit bashing stuff, right? I mean,
yeah,
people want to make their own variants, right? And you want to chop the Gauss rifle off the Stormcrow, and stick the barrel coming out of the chest of my Atlas. That like whatever, right? You can do all kinds of great stuff with plastic. It's just so difficult sometimes with metal because pinches and all that stuff. You got to like jeweler saw it. It's just a pain.
yeah,
So
it's
kind of excited. That I think this will unlock a lot of opportunities, and I think it's the right thing for the franchise.
yeah,
In terms of keeping money coming into them. That there's just an unlimited number of models that these guys can produce, and I think it keeps the float. And I think part of these hobbies, right? Part of the reason we don't play video games exclusively is because we like the modeling aspect, right? You were saying like,
oh yeah.
you love painting, we love, I mean, I love the assembly more than I love the painting, but it's just there's something about that sort of tangible thing. So having more of that to play with, figuratively and literally is very cool. Um, if you had a, sort of just boil down our conversation to a couple of tips for our viewers as an up and coming aspirational painter that they may be, what would your sort of pro tips to them be?
Uh, get a wet palette. Your paint may not you may be able to use your paint the next day, but you
Right.
definitely won't in a paint session have paint dry out on you. And it's easier to mix and helps you learn the viscosity of the paint and the feel of the paint. Get a wet palette. Like number
Okay.
one, don't paint with like for your main brushes, don't use synthetic brushes. Acrylic paint have binders in them, and they're going to fray the tip of your acrylic brushes, and you're going to spend a ton of money on cheap acrylic brushes that are just going to like the tips are going to curl, and there's nothing no matter how well you clean them, your
Right.
acrylic paints will eat your brushes. Like I use synthetics for metallics and stuff I don't care about, but my brush, I mean, I use a nice sable brush, and I mean those have things you have to take care of them, you have to learn to take care of them. So invest in that. But I've had the same 2.0 Kolinsky Sable for 2.5 years, and it still has a fine point. And I treat that thing like my katana, man. I take good care of it, and it's great. So I mean, those kind of things, like you don't have to spend a ton of money on a wet palette or that, but use those tools, because those, you don't want to make your job harder. Like, I think a lot of people get bogged down in miniature painting because they dive right in, and then they make things harder by not thinning paint or by not, using tools that are available, and they get kind of frustrated. And it's easy to get frustrated. I almost threw that Kodiak away twice. I was like, this going in this dripping bath, I'm done with this thing.
Just put them in the mail and send them to me before. I'll take care of it for you.
It's one of my favorite minis now. But I mean, the process, and like, that's, I guess, the final tip I give is like stick with it. Like, if there's something you're working on that you're not happy with, like, show it to some friends or show it to somebody you value advice from, and be like, okay, like, what could I do differently? How can I make this better? And then take that next step and like stick with something. And if you push hard enough, you're going to find something you like. And then you're going to learn from that experience and be able to apply what you learn so you can do it faster the next time. And so, like, don't give up. Like, this is it's a hobby. You should enjoy it. You shouldn't not like. And if you don't like painting, don't paint. But if you're trying to get better, you're trying to paint minis and stuff, push, because you're going to find stuff in yourself that is going to help you do this stuff really well. So
yeah, those are great tips. Those are very, very good tips. And as you were talking about the brushes, I'm like thinking I'm guilty as charged here. So I might need to go check and see what I've got. I
can never figure it out. Like, I go to Hobby Lobby and I buy, $30 worth of, synthetic brushes. That's what I used growing up all the time, was synthetic brushes. And I'm like, why? I use my brush soap and I'd clean them real well. I'd spend like a half hour cleaning brushes every paint session. I'm like, why are these curling? This is so dumb.
Yeah.
And then I went and researched it, like, oh, it's because the acrylic paint is literally melting my brush, and you get this kind of fuzzy tip. I mean, it's great for weathering. It's great for painting bases and stuff. It's just like for your fine work, like, edge highlighting or blending, or they don't work. It's not worth the hassle, I guess.
Yeah. No. Oh, hey, I appreciate that. And I'm sure our viewers will as well. Those are really good tips.
Not to be a snob or anything.
No, hey man, listen, my dad always said, if the job's too hard, you probably have the wrong tools. That was like one of his favorite expressions.
Yeah.
So, whenever we were working on cars or something, so I think, the same type of thing applies here. It's very good advice. So where can we find you? Tell us about, your social internet's presence.
Sure. It's like Facebook's kind of my main thing, because I'm an old man and I didn't learn anything else.
Yes.
So I changed the Facebook page name over from The Way of the Brush to Brushido. And so I think you can just search for Bushido and it's there. It might even be at Brushido. On Twitter, I think it's still at The Way of the Brush. Okay. No one's trolled me there yet. So now someone's going to.
Right.
Yeah, on Instagram, it's Brushido, TWOTB.
Okay. Very cool.
Like Instagram and Facebook, I'll post more like the stuff that isn't BattleTech that I've been painting, and that kind of thing. Most of my Facebook presence will be BattleTech related, but.
Okay. So Facebook really is the way to kind of check you out for the BattleTech stuff. And then, the other sort of avenues if people want to really truly stalk you. Got it.
Yeah, sure. And I'm planning on like trying to get some videos going. It's, I've got 3 small kids and a busy job, and, cranking out videos would definitely cut into my ability to produce miniatures quickly.
Right.
And so I have to make that personal decision to like invest in time to do videos and paint less, which is a trade-off I'm having a hard time with. But I think it'd be fun to share, and I've learned things that I think it would be fun to share with people, and it's not like an ego inflating thing. It's just,
man, I think people find it beneficial.
Well, I think you learn better when you teach too. I mean, I've learned that in my job, and I've learned that in different things. But like when you're teaching, you're also learning something real well, and so it'll be a way for me to learn things differently. But
yeah, I love it. Yeah, I agree. It sort of congeals the sort of the whole thing in my mind when you're the one teaching it, right? Yeah, man. I mean, I love it. I love all of it. So that's all I've got. I mean, I think we're sort of at the end, unfortunately, of our interview here. And once again, thank you so much for coming on the channel. And when you do decide to do videos, of course, if you need any help, don't hesitate to look me up, because I'm on the other side. You know, I need to.
If you want to edit,
maybe if you want to paint
edit.
for me, maybe if you paint for me, I'll edit. I don't know. We could work something out. I feel like there's something we could do here.
Figure it out.
Of course, my current painting backlog is terrain, so maybe it's all. You may not like that. I don't know. But anyway, dude, yeah, thank you so much for coming on the channel. Yeah, it was really great. You know, maybe we'll do this again at some point in the future. You know, we'll check out some more of your fine work. But you know, again, guys, check them out. Check them out on Facebook. Check them out on Instagram. Don't forget to check out the new Camo Specs website. And if you're looking for some, you know, new box sets, or you want to get your hands on some of the new Lance packs, you can always head over to Aries Games and Minis. They have them at a great price. And hopefully when Brent's stuff comes out, we'll be able to get our hands on some of that stuff as well. Can't wait for that. So all of that said, Kevin, sir, have a wonderful night. Guys, thank you so much, and stay tuned. Always great stuff coming from Depth from Above Wargaming. Have a great night.